12 minutes into the flight, as the plane reached 7,300 meters and 62 miles from Tokyo Airport, there was an explosion. Flight crew desperately trying to figure out what's happened. Cabin pressure drops. JAL 123 is now out of control. Quick reminder, 78% of the viewers is not subscribed. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and bell icon so you won't miss any video we upload, and help us to reach more viewers. So don't forget to like and share the video. On August 12, 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123, preparing for takeoff from Haneda Airport in Tokyo to Osaka International Airport. On board were a mix of passengers, businessmen, families returning from Tokyo Disneyland, and travelers visiting relatives for the Obon Festival period. First Officer Yutaka Sasaki, a 39 years old undergoing training for promotion to the rank of captain, and flew Flight 123 as one of his final training flights, acting as captain on the flight. Sasaki had approximately 4,000 total flight hours to his credit and had logged roughly 2,650 hours in the 747. Captain Masami Takahama was 49 years old and served as a training instructor for First Officer Yutaka Sasaki on the flight, supervising him while handling the radio communications while also acting as the first officer. Takahama was a veteran pilot, having logged approximately 12,400 total flight hours, roughly 4,850 of which were accumulated flying 747s. Flight Engineer Hiroshi, a 46-year-old veteran flight engineer who had approximately 9,800 total flight hours, of which roughly 3,850 were accrued flying 747s. 12 minutes into the flight, as the plane reached 7,300 meters and 62 miles from Tokyo Airport, there was an explosion. Flight crew desperately trying to figure out what's happened. Cabin pressure drops. JAL 123 is now out of control. Captain declares an emergency. A large part of the tail had broken off, severing all 4 hydraulic lines, which would have affected the plane's capacity to steer. Captain Masami Takahama, an experienced pilot, attempted to fly the increasingly uncontrollable aircraft back to Haneda, but to no avail. The plane crashed into the Osutaka Ridge in southern Gunma Prefecture, killing 520 of the 524 on board. The impact registered on a seismometer located in Earthquake Observatory at Tokyo University. It is estimated that the shockwaves took approximately 2.0 to 2.3 seconds to reach the seismometer, making the estimated time of the final crash to be at 6:56 and 30 seconds p.m.
The wreckage of a jumbo jet can be seen scattered across the mountains. A specially configured 747 loaded with more than 500 people at the peak of one of Japan's most popular travel holidays.
The aircraft was registered JA8119 and was a Boeing 747-146SR. Its first flight was on January 28, 1974. It had accumulated slightly more than 25,000 flight hours and 18,835 cycles in service. At the time of the accident, the aircraft was on the 5th of its 6 planned flights of the day. There were 15 crew members, 12 flight attendants, and 3 cockpit crew. The flight was around the Obon holiday period in Japan, when many Japanese people make yearly trips to their hometown. Around 21 non-Japanese people were on board the flight, 4 residents of Hong Kong, 2 from Italy, 2 from United States, 1 from West Germany, and 1 United Kingdom, and some of them were residents in Japan. A Japan Self-Defense Force helicopter later spotted the wreck after nightfall. Poor visibility and the difficult mountainous terrain prevented it from landing at the site. The pilot reported from the air that there were no signs of survivors. Based on this report, rescue team on the ground did not set out to the site on the night of the crash. Instead, they were dispatched to spend the night at a makeshift village, erecting tents, constructing helicopter landing ramps, and engaging in other preparations 39 miles from the crash site. Rescue teams set out for the site the following morning. Medical staff later found bodies with injuries, suggesting that people had survived the crash only to die from shock, exposure overnight in the mountains, or from injuries that, if tended to earlier, would not have been fatal. One doctor said, "If the discovery had come 10 hours earlier, we could have found more survivors." 4 female passengers miraculously survived the disaster and lived to tell the tale. Yumi Ochiai, a 26-year-old off-duty flight attendant, Keiko Kawakami, a 12-year-old girl, and Hiroki Yoshizaki and Mikiko Yoshizaki, a mother and daughter, miraculously survived the crash. All of them were seated in the left row in the rear of the aircraft, and fortunately this was the only part of the plane that remained intact. However, the 12-year-old Keiko Kawakami was found under the debris that surrounded the plane. Although she suffered extensive injuries and had to be treated at a hospital for 3 months, she fully recovered and continued to live her life. Still, the disastrous accident tragically changed her life. Both of her parents and her younger sister were killed in the crash. What have caused the crash? According to the report published by Japan's Aircraft Accident Investigation Commission, the aircraft was involved in a tail strike incident at Osaka International Airport in 1978, which damaged the aircraft's AFT pressure bulkhead. The crash investigation found that the tail strike from 1978 had been improperly repaired. Boeing's specification for the damaged bulkhead required one continuous splice plate with 3 rows of rivets, but the Boeing technicians carrying out the repair substituted 2 discontinuous splice plates placed parallel to the joint. The post-repair inspection by JAL did not discover the defect as it was covered by overlapping plates. When the faulty repair failed, causing a rapid decompression that ripped off a large portion of the tail and caused the loss of hydraulic controls to the entire plane. One of the 4 survivors, off-duty Japan Airlines flight purser Yumi Ochiai, recounted from her hospital bed that she recalled bright lights and the sound of helicopter rotors shortly after she awoke amid the wreckage. And while she could hear screaming and moaning from other survivors, these sounds gradually died away during the night. August 1985 remains commercial aviation's deadliest month for passengers and crew in history. 720 travelers and crew lost their lives on board commercial aircraft in a single month. The deaths occurred in 4 separate accidents.